Good morning. The Senate Committee on Education and Health will come to order. And before we start, I wanted to read a new policy that has been articulated by the Senate. It's the Senate Virtual Participation Policy, outlining the ways in which we will take public participation through virtual means. So the statement is that virtual participation is welcome in the legislative process. To ensure that the process runs as smoothly as possible, virtual participants must sign up to speak 1/2 hour before the committee meeting begins. Virtual participation is only possible on bills that will be heard in the full committee. Subcommittees will not be, and in which subcommittees will not be taking virtual comments. Participants must be Virginians or recognized subject matter experts. All participants must state who they are, the jurisdiction in which they reside, and whether they are representing a group before they present their comments. A presenter on the virtual platform must have the camera on and be physically present in the virtual space. The chair will announce at the beginning of the public comment period how much time is allotted to each speaker. We are going to take public comments rarely in this full committee, so most of the virtual participation will occur in our 4 subcommittees. Thank you to everyone who is here today. We have invited Superintendent Lisa Kuntz from VDOE to share some of the work and the efforts that have been going on in VDOE, and also to respond to some questions that committee members may have for her. So welcome, Superintendent, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm honored to be here, and I want to thank each of you who I've had the opportunity to speak with and share our passion for the children in the Commonwealth. I just want to share a couple of things, and I want to start with talking about where we started as the Virginia Department of Education when I came as a career educator of 25 years, 9 months ago, and where we are now and where we're going. So first I want to talk about educating and elevating educator voice, making sure the Virginia Department of Education is a customer service agency, talking about how we are working to recover from learning loss, and focusing on our schools who need it the most and who are in most fragile status. On day one, I had the opportunity in my first work to go and celebrate and recognize a Regional Teacher of the Year. More than recognizing that teacher, we sat down and chatted. And I realized that there are challenges facing our educators and that there are challenges inside of our agency that we needed to address. When I started, we had a 26% vacancy rate, 132 vacancies out of our 503 staff members. I'm proud today. We have a 3% departure rate, and I want to recognize Almas Floyd and Rosalind Brown from our Department of Human Services, our HR team, who have really leaned in to help us build a strong culture at the agency and a strong place. But we also learned that we weren't necessarily serving our customers. We weren't serving our staff, and we had a teacher licensure backlog of over 20,000 licenses. And when we dug into that and we heard from our superintendents and heard from our frustrated educators, we realized that we had some internal communication and some internal support that we needed to work on. And we had to change processes. We had to make sure that there wasn't paper sitting in the basement, that our experts weren't using copiers, and we had to change the way we did things. And we have worked really hard to focus on customer service. As we all know, our students have persistent learning loss, and it's a different kind of support that the Virginia Department of Education must provide. We must help children. It is absolutely essential for us to change our practices and come alongside of our educators. And change is hard. Being a customer service agency is not what the Virginia Department of Education used to be. And we had to really lean in and do things differently and support our school divisions, be out listening and being able to pivot to the things that they are asking us to do. So we honor those people who are with us but we also want to recognize that we have staff members who have been at the agency for 42 years and recognize their expertise. When we worked on the licensure, we brought retirees back to help us understand historic practices, but also innovate for the future. And as a few people have left, we've told them as soon as they're allowed to talk to us again and work with us, we are going to do that. We also know that we have to support our school divisions. Very honored that in the fall, you dedicated $418 million of flexible funds for learning loss, and we've had the opportunity to come alongside of our superintendents and our school divisions in that work. We've worked on tutoring, literacy, which is a passion of mine. I'm most excited to be in Virginia and came to Virginia because you have that groundbreaking legislation that not only serves what a lot of states serve, but pre-K through 8, and really appreciative of that, but also thinking about tutoring. And tutoring we've seen in other states work and work well, whether that's alternative educators, the teachers in place, or really partnering with our higher ed to bring aspiring educators together. We've also been able to put statewide programs into support. But as we were listening to educators, we realized that chronic absenteeism is a major situation for our families. It's a major challenge for our educators. It's a challenge our teachers have talked about, and it's a challenge that our superintendents have advocated for. So we launched a statewide chronic absenteeism task force, and I want to thank Dr. Clint Mitchell and Dr. Doug Straley, who are 2 of the 5 superintendents who have led us through that chronic absenteeism task force. We looked at food insecurities, re-engaging families, transportation barriers, making sure our families had resources and needs to come to school. And they led the way in those conversations. They helped us think about strategies we needed to spread. And last week, they spoke to all superintendents to talk about how to come together to continue to work on chronic absenteeism. But most importantly, we have the most students at risk in our MOU schools. And some of our MOU schools have been in MOU status for 20 years. That is not okay. It is not okay for schools to be in MOU status for 20 years. We have to change what we're doing, and we have to work differently. I had the blessing to be a priority schools officer in Nashville and serve 20 priority schools. One of the ways we worked on that work and one of the ways we changed opportunities was really digging into instruction. So I want to thank Brendan Albin, Dr. Albin, and Dr. Ballard, who might be on his way in, for their work in transforming our opportunities for our most at-risk schools in the Office of School Quality and really leaning in to focus on instruction. Most importantly, as we move forward and think about how we serve our students, we have to listen, we have to support our educators, and we have to work forward together. I've been really thankful to talk to you about how we come together, how we talk to our educators and move forward. And I want to just note Melissa Velasquez and where'd you go? Rebecca Askew. They are our policy analysts, and I'm excited to work collectively with them and you to build bridges and support the work for our students. Thank you for having me here. I'm honored to be with you and happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Superintendent. Appreciate your comments today. And we have a few people in queue to ask questions. The first is Senator Head. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Superintendent Coons. I'm wondering, you touched on this briefly at the beginning, but I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your philosophy about making VDOE a more customer service-focused agency. Among other things, identifying who your customers are. But I think that the lack of responsiveness sometimes is something that a number of us have had some concerns with in the past, and I think really needs to change. I know you're working on that, and I'm wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on that for us.
Sure. I think historically state agencies have focused on compliance and regulatory pieces. We have to change and make sure we're supporting our students first. We have 1.3 million children from birth to graduation that we have to support across the Commonwealth. So those are in our families who support them and our educators. And one of the things when I came in, we had over 400 websites with hundreds of links that were broken. So just having access to website information. We had phone lines that were wired the way you would wire them pre-pandemic, and we didn't have the ability for staff members to take telecalls on their computers. So just simple structural opportunities for us to be responsive and make sure that we're shifting. But we also had to change the structure of how people reported to each other to make sure that we could have answers and that we could coherently think like our educators. So in historic past, you'd have special education sitting over here and instruction sitting over here. All teachers teach all children, and they have to work together, so we had to build bridges and coherence inside the agency to make sure we could quickly respond in the way our educators needed us to do.
Thank you, Senator Head, and then next is Senator Craig.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. Virginia's got one of the highest military families in the states, and in my school district, I have a very a large amount of military families in Virginia Beach and in Chesapeake, and puts a lot of stress on the families when they go to deployment. And the fact that they are frequently moving in and out of schools. And so a lot of these students, they fall through the cracks, they develop, mental health issues and things just because they have to jump from school to school. What's the department doing to help support these children and the military families? What else can we do to help them? Because these children, we have to put them in a position to succeed because they are moving around so frequently.
As a wife and a mother, thank you for that question. My husband serves in the military for 29 years. My son serves in the military, and my stepson serves in the military. So I'm incredibly grateful for our military and what they do, and incredibly honored that we have the most military-connected families in the country. We also have one of the strongest military programs and military compacts led by Dan Dunham and his work, and really proud that we have an office that directly supports families. But you talked about mental health and behavioral health. We have shifted to launch an Office of Behavioral Health and Wellness over the past month, where our mental health supports, but also our drug, opioid, and school nurses and resource sit side by side, and our military services coordinator can sit together, plan together, and really think about that, as well as our chronic absenteeism experts in that packet. So we're trying to put all of those barriers that tend to happen for children, whether it's a military family or a family in need, together so it's a one-stop coherent place for our school divisions to come to, because a lot of times those are crisis situations. I don't want to call one person, a school nurse, and then call someone about military needs and then call someone about that. And really proud that Dan has had phone calls from military families, and we've been able to work with the school division same day to alleviate those challenges. And we're recognized earlier this year when all of the representatives from military state agencies, military representatives from state agencies came together and want to continue to support that. We have great Purple Star awards for our schools, and some of the schools in your region are some of the greatest and biggest ones, but we plan on having the biggest military signing day in the spring and honoring our military as we move forward as an agency.
For just one statement. Thank you. Just in Chesapeake, when I served on the school board, we had, a lot of the families come in before us for behavioral issues and expulsions because of the stress of this. So
absolutely.
I really want to make sure that we really do continue this work for our military families. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Next in queue is Senator Durant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I wanted to just sort of publicly thank you. I think it was back in the summer you were pretty new on the position. You took an opportunity to, on the fly, have a meeting with some of the librarians in the Commonwealth who had raised an issue of concern, and I'm really grateful for how quickly you tackled that issue. The second question I wanted to raise with you is you and I have had many discussions with the progress we've made in the Commonwealth with the Literacy Act and how we've been able to build that up with the science of reading, but the numeracy issue, we've seen the data on that. We've had a lot of discussions. I wonder if we could just kind of have a little bit expound on what we're doing so far and kind of the vision we have going forth.
Absolutely. Really proud. Dr. Marcy Sorensen leads our academics, and she is back here and is really leading not only our standards process, but also some of the learning loss work. And so we have revised our math standards to be more coherent and are working through the process of making sure instructional materials can support our educators. But most importantly, we need to think about learning loss. What we're hearing from the field is our students in grades 3 through 8 are missing basic numeracy skills, and our students in 9th grade are really missing basic skills like fractions, to do slope and those kinds of things. What we know, based on evidence in pandemic recovery in other states, is that it's not about holding a kiddo to skills. Drill and kill skills, skills, skills. It's about learning that missing content that they have and getting back into their grade level content. Because if we hold them back, the gap continues to widen. And we don't want to widen the gaps for any of our students, most importantly, our students who have the biggest learning loss from the pandemic. So we want to make sure that we are able to diagnose where those gaps are, catch those students up and move forward. So one of the things we were able to do as a state is procure Zern. Zern is well recognized in Louisiana, Nebraska, Texas, and Tennessee. They just released a report this week that closed gaps about 11% for students who are doing Zern 3 times a week. And it's not because the computer replaces the teacher, it's because that practice on Zern allows the teacher to know where those gaps are. And what we know is if I don't understand a gap in mathematics, I can't do the math today. And what we also know is if a student can't do the math today, they are going to struggle and get frustrated and not want to do math. Zern allows that student to practice and give that teacher and that tutor real-time data to say, hey, they've got fractions, but they don't know negative numbers. They've got this, but they don't know that. And our teachers are working very hard. That data is critical for them. And that practice where that student gets that coach inside a program like that is tremendously helpful. And the interesting thing that we're seeing in that data post-pandemic is it's closing gaps for our students who had the most learning loss. So our economically disadvantaged, our Black and our Hispanic students are gaining faster. And so we're really excited to start collecting that data with Zern. Zern is, we have, Marcy, I'm going to miss the numbers. 10,000 students in Zern 3 times a week right now in Virginia. We are very excited about the work and hopeful we have over 100 districts not only using Zern but in the literacy space using Lexia and Ignite to support the tutoring work that we can track our progress statewide. So excited to see that moving forward. But we need to continue to work on that. We had superintendents tell us that they're concerned about their freshmen and they're freshmen in algebra. So we've been able to work with superintendents as they've come to us and say, this is a concern of ours, and putting programs in place to support them as well. But we have to continue to look at our students, look where there are, in particular, our students who missed those critical foundational years when schools were closed.
That's outstanding. So much.
Thank you. Next is Senator Locke.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome. And thank you for your presentation. We've heard a lot this morning about learning loss and efforts that have been taken to address that issue. But there was a program in place called Engage Virginia that was designed for that specific purpose, yet that program was terminated. Can you talk a little bit about, one, why it was terminated, if the purpose of Engage Virginia was to address the impact of the pandemic on learning and also on attendance, yet here's a program designed for that purpose, yet it was terminated. Talk a little bit about why that happened and what efforts have been taken to try to replace a program that was working.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. That was appropriated for 2 years, time-bound, in the General Assembly appropriations in the budget. It was scheduled to end on December 31st, 2023. And the language in the appropriation was that this was a short-term, time-bound COVID response around attendance recovery. As that sunset, we definitely reached out. We also have worked with school divisions around their flexible funding to make sure we're supporting them with chronic absenteeism needs. We did not hear from any school divisions that this was something that was a priority of theirs. If we hear from them, we will definitely work with them to support them in ways to move forward. However, this was designed as a short-term COVID relief, and it was funded through the appropriation that ended on December 31st, 2023.
Thank you for that response. It could have easily have been reenacted by the administration, but I have one other question, and that has to do with the departure of some longtime employees at DOE, individuals with significant experience and long-term leaders who have served across several administrations. And served governors from both parties, and it included an assistant superintendent for assessment and accountability, the director of accountability, and the director of communications, who have since left DOE. Can you help us understand the circumstances by which these individuals departed DOE?
Absolutely happy to do that. As I spoke to at the beginning, we've had a significant number when I walked in of departures. Each of the staff members that you mentioned are valued employees who have done incredible contributions, as you stated. One of those employees retired after 42 years of service, which is an incredible dedication to our Commonwealth. She also helped us work through the 585 work group around assessment and accountability. She helped us set up the accountability work that we're doing now, and we appreciated her service. And while she's under retirement, we are not able to talk to her, but we have talked to her about coming back and supporting us in a role that's appropriate for her now that she's chosen to retire after a long and distinguished career, and appreciate her very much. We also know that in accountability, we have to change what we're doing. We have to tell the story of accountability, and so that's a space where we've really leaned into the expertise we had. That young lady was here for just under 2 years, but continue to work with our school divisions and support around accountability. And we really have stepped up our communications. We want to make sure we're elevating educators' voice and thinking about that outside. We've moved that director of communications to an assistant superintendent role and really build out that communication team to make sure we're hearing and listening well. So it's important for us in a time of change to respect and honor those staff members, continue to ask for their expertise. We've had a retired staff member come in and work with us on our licensure program and some of the challenges that we have with licensure, but we want to honor and respect where they are, but also understand that they're making choices that are personal and important to them.
Thank you. And Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being with us, Superintendent. One of the things I've vocalized to you privately, but also have spoken to publicly, is a kind of feeling of whiplash sometimes, and around policies or proposals. And I wonder if you could kind of go into a little detail about the decision-making matrix that goes into policies, because I think that that's where sometimes it feels like there's a lot of confusion. And I think I mean that in a couple of ways. What's the decision-making matrix around, say, when a proposal is going to be announced, or when you're going to go all in on a proposal, or once you have a proposal, the decision-making that goes into how to implement it, right? So tutoring, which is something I love, Tennessee tutoring is, I think, a gold standard that we should implement immediately. We implement in-person tutoring, and then we say, okay, you guys give the localities very little time to turn around on that, right? And so so whether it's the broad proposal or it's how you implement the proposal, kind of what's the decision-making matrix between, say, the governor's office and you, or secondarily you and, say, the deputies, right? So like, how much autonomy do deputies in the agency have to be making decisions? How much autonomy do you versus the governor's office have? Because I think that's oftentimes very unclear to us. I think it's oftentimes a source of angst. And I think kind of clarifying those roles would be very helpful.
Sure. First and most importantly, we make sure we're looking at the data and research. And I have a deputy who oversees, we moved him into a deputy role and combined research, technology, and information to make sure not only are we looking at data, but we're looking at research at the same time. You mentioned Tennessee. We need to look at what the research is happening. If we're thinking about Zern, our deputy of academics has to sit down next to research teams and look at the resources that are out there and available to make sure we're taking best in class. So our deputies work very close together on looking at those spaces. But we also have to be out in the field. Every single one of my leadership team meets monthly with their regional superintendents. I go out and talk to educators. I have a principal advisory group that I met with yesterday and talked about where we are and what things they're hearing, what are their biggest concerns. And we do that monthly. We were able to take 3 of them to a national conference in November so they could hear the different things that were happening across the country. We also meet with principals monthly, and we meet with our superintendents on a regular basis. It's important for us to listen. So if we're thinking about something, that we also talk about that with our educators in the field, and that we're making sure the voice and pulse of our educators is front and foremost. And what we heard from them is this overwhelming of how do we do tutoring? You spoke to tutoring. So we wanted to make sure we gave them a roadmap with lots of flexibility. We didn't say you must use the highest qualified teacher in the room so the teacher is working and working. We said these are some options, these are some strategies, and then we came alongside and said how would you like that to happen? We also said, we didn't say you must start tutoring on November 1. We encouraged you to start as soon as possible. However, we have had school divisions sit with us several times through November and December and talk and collaborate and think through that. So it's important for us to be shoulder to shoulder, and that is what is at my heart, is to being shoulder to shoulder with educators and making sure educators are first and foremost. Senator Favola, I just saw you, and we've talked about special education and listening to the challenges from our families about special education and what we need to do to reform that. Because of the challenges that were coming to me from a variety of voices, educators, advocacy groups, families, we asked nationally, who are the best experts on this? Tell us what's happening. Tell us what you're hearing and ask them to go out and help us. And they came back with a report with lots of recommendations. We could have turnkeyed on 42 recommendations and tried to roll that out. That doesn't make sense. So we've actually created a task force that represents those advocacy, those parents, those educators, and said, what's most important? Let's build out a roadmap for 2024. And that's important to us. Of course, everything we do, we talk to the Secretary of Education's office, because the Secretary of Education in Virginia is a partner for us. They oversee over 50 agencies, and we're one of those agencies, and we spend a great deal of time talking about coherence, but we also have to think about all of the agencies that she oversees and make sure that we collaborate closely together.
And I think our final question comes from Senator Aird.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and good morning, Superintendent.
Good morning.
I think I wanted to go back to an earlier question just to clarify that you heard from Senator Locke, just because I think the conversation around chronic absenteeism is so important. Everything we've talked about today, it doesn't matter if a child isn't in school, right? Yep. And so I just wanted to clarify, some of your comments around the Graduation Alliance partnership that 52 of our schools were engaged with. You said that you didn't hear from any schools about wanting to continue that partnership once the announcement for the elimination of funding was mentioned. And I represent one of the schools that are one of the 52, and I had certainly heard from them that they were confused and wanted to continue that partnership. And I think my issue is that with the funding for that program ending mid-school year, and particularly in some of our more challenged school divisions where it's much harder to combat chronic absenteeism, to ask them to now come up with, either positions and or programs where they were getting that at a much cheaper, probably deal with the Engage Virginia program. I guess I wanted to ask you, can you just clarify what exactly is doing to fill the gap for those 52 schools now that have already submitted their All in Virginia request, don't have additional funding, but still have this gaping chronic absenteeism challenge before them?
Well, thank you for your comments, because I agree 100% that chronic absenteeism is one of the biggest challenges we're facing, and we have to address that. And it's incredibly important. And I'm sorry that I did not hear from your schools, but I'm more than happy to speak with them. We are facing a space in education where we had a large influx of ESSER federal dollars that we all, not just the state, but our school divisions are facing. We are still facing persistent challenges and are going to have to make some hard choices about what we're able to fund. And these were short-term funds. The funds have sunset, but we're more than willing to work together and hear our constituents. One of the reasons we brought our superintendents together for the chronic absenteeism task force is to hear what's really working. This did not bubble up as one of those situations, but if it is important, I am more than happy to sit down and talk with our schools and think about ways to move that forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and my apologies. We have two more senators who wish to ask questions, Senator Pekarsky and then Senator Peake.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Superintendent Coons. I appreciate you being here and the opportunity to meet with you. As we all know, having a highly qualified teacher in every classroom in front of every student is essential. Absolutely. But that has become very difficult right now, not only recruitment, but retention and compensation. It is a number one issue that I think we're hearing from many localities. Can you please speak to that?
Absolutely. We have studied that data and really dug in. And so what we have found is that we have 20% of our school divisions with 0 to 1 vacancy. And we have other school divisions, as you spoke to, who have significant vacancies. So it is a differentiated issue. And it's not even a regional issue. When our research team looked at it, there could be a side-to-side school division issue. So we know this is a localized need, and we want to support our locals. When we look nationally, because that research base is very important to me, there are several states across the country who are really changing the tide. And they're using a program called Grow Your Own. And what we know is there are amazing teacher educators serving as bus drivers, as classroom assistants, as secretaries, who want to be educators, but they don't have the funds and means to get licensed, to go through that process like you talked about, and sit in classrooms. What we really need to lean into is a program that allows them to have scholarships, and the U.S. Department of Education, or the U.S. Department of Labor, has created an apprenticeship program and dollars for that, which we now have grants for, and Pell Grants that allow those staff members who have dedicated to their communities, who have dedicated to their local schools, and support them so that they don't have debt, they don't have to have reimbursement, and they're able to have a no-cost, low-cost opportunity to become an educator. We have that scholarship program happening right now, and we're seeing regional partnerships, whether it's our rural community in Southwest Virginia that has school divisions coming together that allows those educators to continue and work and continue to receive a wage and get their full-time degree at almost no cost. Or in Southside or in Tidewater, we're seeing great programs where people who have already committed and dedicated to their schools and their communities, and they're becoming a teacher, and they're becoming a teacher with our great teachers and mentors and having that day in, day out experience to serve their communities.
Senator Peake.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Superintendent. I've heard you talk a lot about your meetings and discussions with principals and teachers and administrators. How about the actual students? Have you had any opportunity to talk with our students? And if you have, what are you hearing from them?
That's my favorite thing, because our students come to you transparently, and they come to you excited with their dreams, and they come to you wanting to be successful. And some of our students are loving school. I had the opportunity to be in an elementary school in Cumberland Elementary, and they led the tour. And oh, okay, well, good. Well, Jenny Gills is the principal, and she is a rock star, but the students led. And they talked about their teachers. They talked about what their teachers were instilling in them and how they were enjoying education and the power that education had. We've also talked to students who are sitting in classes in high school that want more flexibility, and they want to be able to work on their careers, and they want the opportunities, and some of them are having challenges. So we have to revision some of our educational structures to meet our students and be successful. But the one thing that each of our students say is how much they love their educators, and I'm incredibly proud that our educators are serving our children so well.
Thank you, Senator Peake, and thank you, Superintendent, for responding to questions and making your presentation. When you and I had met earlier this week, I asked for a list of deliverables, and can you just share with us when we might expect those in the Senate committee?
They should be with you on a folder on the dais. Everyone should have
Okay.
those. And if there's anything else you need, please let me know.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes.
for drawing my attention to the
Yes.
folder sitting
Thank
right in
you.
front of me. So,
No worries, it's early.
thank you. If there are no more questions from the committee, we certainly thank you for your time this morning. And I want to share with my committee members that you have shared with me that you are fully accessible. And should we have individual questions or committee questions, we will continue to collaborate and reach out to your office. So thank you again for joining us.
Yep, and thank you for the collaboration. Thank you very much for all you do. Thank you.
Okay, will clerk call the roll?
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. The first bill in front of us in our docket, and before we introduce that bill, I just want to remind all of our committee members that we have the subcommittee reports, individual subcommittee reports that will be presented by our individual committee chairs in just a few minutes. But the first bill in front of us is SB 274, patroned by Senator Deeds. This has been requested to re-refer to Commerce and Labor. Is there a motion on the floor?
Second.
Is this a voice vote? If we can take that vote, please.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Look, thank you. And so this bill, SB 274, is now re-referred to Commerce and Labor. The first subcommittee report that we have is from our Health Professions Subcommittee, and Senator Boysko is chair. Senator Boysko, we are ready for your report from your subcommittee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have a little bit of housekeeping to do. SB 35 has been requested by the patron to take it by for the day. And I would...
Second.
Okay, all in favor of taking that by for the day?
Well, there is a motion to take SB 35 by for the day. This is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are taking SB 35 by for the day at request of patron. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you,
Boysko.
ma'am. Also,
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Suderline.
I think that some of us received 2 copies of the public education report, but not one of the subcommittee that Senator Boysko, at least over here, it seems to be a
I
problem.
don't seem to have Boy Scout.
I have it. I have it.
Let's see.
Well, we don't.
Madam Chair, there were no substitutes and amendments adopted in the Health Professions Subcommittee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair, there is a substitute, I understand, Senator Head's SB 155. He is indicated to me that he's ready to move the substitute. Would you like to?
If everybody has the substitute, I can walk you through the changes. From the introduced version.
We are ready for you,
Okay.
Senator Head.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Most of the changes are purely technical in nature. If you, one was on lines 38 and 39. We changed the word managing to evaluating primary care graduate medical education. On lines 40 and 41, we added setting priorities for and managing the Virginia Healthcare Career and Technical Training and Education Fund, and then added in a code. We added in a code provision for the creation of that fund because we were, this is a new fund and there are budget amendments that would create it, but we're taking action on this bill and referencing a fund that doesn't yet exist. So in this case, we needed to create the fund in code as well so we could direct them to manage that. And then we also amended a section, code section 54.1 3500, because we had directed the department to change the definitions of qualified mental health professionals and combined it. Right currently it's broken down into qualified mental health professional adult and qualified mental health professional child. The request had been made from the department and all of the stakeholders that we combine that into just one qualified mental health care professional. And while we can direct them to do that in this bill, the problem is that those things are defined in another section of the code. So we also went through and then changed the definition in code as a part of the bill so that we would combine those two. So you'll see that change there. Then further on lines 66 and 67, we struck the Chief Workforce Development and inserted Workforce Development and Advancement Officer. Line 110, after education, we struck and inserted Workforce Data Trust. Lines 147, we struck Chairman of the Virginia Board of Workforce Development and inserted Director of the Virginia Department of Workforce Development and Advancement. And finally, on lines 163, struck Labor and inserted Virginia Department of Workforce Development and Advancement. So again, mostly technical, but a couple of little things that we needed to do to get things lined up. But that the bill structurally is exactly the same as it was in subcommittee. So
we have the substitute in front of us. Is there a motion to accept the substitute? It's been moved and seconded that we accept the substitute. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Senator Head. And Senator Boysko, will you proceed to present the bill?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. SB 155. I'm sorry. There we go. This would create a Virginia Health Workforce Development Authority, modifying the enabling legislation for the Virginia Health Workforce Development Authority by adding 4 ex officio members to the authority, directing changes to the regulation regarding qualification for nursing faculty, qualified mental health professionals, establishing a work group to address health workforce shortages, and creating a program for health workforce development. This bill directs the Board of Nursing and the Board of Counseling to adopt emergency regulations to implement relevant provisions of the bill, and for the work group to submit its report to the governor on relevant committees of the General Assembly by October 1st, 2025. And it was recommended by the subcommittee to report 4-0. And re-refer to finance.
Thank you, Senator Boysko. Is there any are there any questions or comments from committee members? There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to report and re-refer to Finance, SB 155. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you. The SB 155 is recommended for reporting and re-referred to Finance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The rest of this is more straightforward. We have SB 74, which is the Prescription Monitoring Program, release of records to drug court administrators and behavioral health docket administrators. It was recommended reporting 4-0 by Senator Durant. I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
SB 74 has been There's been a motion to report SB 74. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
SB 74 passes and is reported from the committee. Senator Boyska.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Head also brought SB 133, which is Physician's Assistants Practice Agreement Exemption. It was recommended reporting 4-0, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that SB 133 be reported from the committee. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you. The motion for reporting SB 133 has passed. Senator Boyska.
Madam Chair, I believe that completes the health professions docket. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Boysko. And our next subcommittee chair is Senator Favola reporting the Health Subcommittee.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item on our docket that came before the subcommittee was Senate Bill 154. The patron was Senator Head, and it was the Advanced Healthcare Planning Registry. And what it did is it amended the list of documents that may be submitted to the Advanced Healthcare Directive Registry to include any other document and support that advanced healthcare planning. It was a very straightforward bill. It reported the recommendation from the subcommittee is that we report the bill.
There is a motion to report the bill. Is there a second? Second. There is a motion and a second that we report SB 154. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
The motion to recommend, or the motion to report SB 154 passes. Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I draw your attention to Senate Bill 250. The patron was Senator Hashmi. What this bill does is it directs the Department of Medical Assistance, or DMAS, to look at remote ultrasound procedures and remote fetal non-stress tests. So these can be done remotely in an effort to assist low-income patients in accessing much-needed care. The bill was recommended to be reported. It does have to be re-referred to Finance. My motion is that it report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to introduce just a technical amendment, if I may.
Yes.
This is an amendment on line 231, and it is a technical amendment just to strike to reimburse patients. In conversation with DMAS, the procedure that DMAS follows is reimbursement to providers, and I ask that the committee adopt the technical amendment.
Move adoption.
In second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The amendment has passed. And
I renew my motion that the bill as amended be reported and re-referred to Finance.
Second.
there's a motion and a second that SB 250 be reported with amendment and re-referred to Finance. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
The motion to report and re-refer to Finance, SB 250, has passed. Senator Favola.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I draw the committee's attention to Senate Bill 320. Patron was Senator Rome. And what this bill does is it directs the Department of Health to provide information and resources and education to food banks throughout the Commonwealth regarding assistance that could be available to access WIC and other related programs. The recommendation from the committee is that we report the bill and re-refer it to Finance.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that SB 320 be reported and re-referred to Finance. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you. SB 320 has been reported and is re-referred to Finance. Senator Favola.
I ask the committee to draw your attention to Senate Bill 325. The patron was Senator Rome. Madam Chair, there is an amendment in the nature of a substitute. If you would like to adopt the substitute.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the substitute. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The substitute has been adopted.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Chair, what this does, it deals with vital records and certificates, especially related to adoption when a military family is involved. It directs the state registrar to issue a new birth certificate no later than 2 business days after receipt of the adoption records for a person born in the Commonwealth if at least one adoptive parent is an active duty or retired member of the military or military reserves. And the bill directs the court to decree the adoption to deliver such records to the state registrar no later than 5 business days. It is the recommendation of the committee that we report the bill as amended and to re-refer the bill to Finance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we report the bill with substitute and re-refer to Finance. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you. SB 325 has been reported with substitute and re-referred to Finance. Senator Favola.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I ask the committee to draw your attention to Senate Bill 525. The patron was Senator Williams Graves. There is an amendment that I would ask the committee to adopt.
Move the amendment.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
And Senator Favola, I believe the patron is here. Is there another amendment that the patron would like to introduce?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The amendment is a technical amendment on line 20. It is to strike deliver a stillborn child and insert experience a stillbirth. And on line 22, strike of a stillborn child.
Do we have the amendments in written form to share with committee?
I have it.
The patron has introduced an amendment. Are there any questions for the patron? Is there a motion on the amendment?
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the amendment.
It's been moved. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the amendment as introduced by the patron. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment has been adopted.
Thank you.
Senator Favola.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Now that we have the bill that was amended twice, the recommendation remains that the committee report the bill and re-refer it to Finance.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we report SB 525 and re-refer to Finance. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
SB 525 has been reported as amended and re-referred to Finance. Thank you, Senator Favola, for your committee report.
Thank you.
The next report will be presented by Senator Van Valkenburg, Chair of the Subcommittee on Public Education.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members of the committee, we're going to start with Senate Bill 13 from Senator Favola, and we did recommend reporting with a substitute, so I would move that substitute.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the substitute. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The substitute has been adopted.
Okay, so members of the committee, this bill directs now with the substitute, it allows localities to amend regulations to permit child day programs to operate in office buildings, and it permits any locality to waive an ordinance and any requirement for zoning permits for a child day program to operate in an office building. This originally had the Board of Education doing it, which is why it came here. With the substitute, if we report favorably on it, we would need to refer it to local government. So the motion will be to recommend reporting with substitute and re-refer to local government, which we should do because this is for the children and we want to help them. And so it was recommended reporting 5-0 as substitute and re-referring to local government, and I so move.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you. There is a motion and a second that we report with substitute SB 13 and re-refer to local government. Clerk will open the roll. Suderline.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you. SB 13 has been reported with substitute and re-referred to local government. Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now we're on to Senate Bill 27 from Senator Stanley. I'm not sure this one's for the children. I'm just kidding, Senator. I'm just kidding. All right, so this one establishes the Public School Trades Incentive Fund and the Public School Trades Incentive Program for the purpose of providing grants on a competitive basis for the fund to any school board that seeks to do one of two things: restore high school programs that teach students skilled trades that lead to earning industry-recognized certifications or credentials, or two, create or restore middle school programs that encourage and recruit students to participate in high school programs that teach students skilled trades that lead to those certifications or credentials. The bill requires DOE to administer the program and to establish such rules and procedures relating to applications and awards as it deems appropriate. It also permits any grantee to use program funding for equipment, curriculum development, or instructor training, and it requires each grantee to track information towards these things. We recommended reporting 5-0, but we need to recommend reporting and then re-refer to finance, and this, I so move.
It's been moved and seconded that SB 27 be reported and re-referred to finance. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you. SB 27 has been reported and re-referred to finance. Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, Madam Chair, the children will revolt on this bill, so we want to set that tone. Senate Bill 28, also from Senator Stanley, is about cell phones and other handheld communication devices. And so this allows each school board to develop and implement a policy that prohibits the possession or use of cell phones and other handheld communication devices during regular school hours. For this one, we did have a little bit more of a robust discussion. The vote was 3 yeses and 2 abstentions. And so when it's the appropriate time, I'd recommend reporting on that basis of 3 yeses and 2 abstentions. But I'll pass it over.
Thank you, Senator Van Valkenburg. We have Senator Pekarsky in queue to speak to this bill.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. As we discussed in subcommittee, I wanted to turned off. This is a critically important issue. And what we are seeing is that localities are already implementing this. I was one of those abstentions. I plan to vote no because the authority to actually implement these kinds of policies is already in school board's purview. So I just see this as a redundant law. It's not needed, in my opinion. It's not a mandate. It's just permissive. So again, it's a gentle no, but it's not because I don't agree with the premise of where this came from. And I appreciate you bringing the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pekarsky. I think Senator Stanley will agree that one does not need to be gentle with him. We have Senator Suderline also wishes to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Pekarsky's comments are basically what I was about to ask a question on. My understanding is at least half a dozen school divisions in the Commonwealth, I think largely close to the subcommittee chair, and I see Senator Aird's, I think it's near your all's districts. And I was under the impression that this had been going and had met with some of the superintendents recently who had done this. So I guess my question is to council, they already have this authority?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so this bill, SB 28, is permissive. There is no regulation or provision of law that would prohibit school boards from exercising this authority. So this is just making it explicit that they may do so if they so desire.
All right, Madam Chair, I appreciate that from council. So I guess this is just codifying the current practice. Is that correct? All right, thank you. I got a thumbs up.
One quick question. We have one question from Senator Craig and then Senator Favola.
Thank you. You were absolutely correct. I served on school board, and school boards are doing it. Chesapeake does it, I believe Virginia Beach, but some school divisions don't. So it's just permissive. I think that if we put it in code, that might maybe alert some school divisions that are not doing it that they do need to make these new regulations. So I support this. Thank you.
Senator Favola.
My issue was addressed.
Are there any other comments from committee?
Madam Chair, maybe before I restate the motion, I'll defend the senator's bill and maybe take the flip side of what Senator Pekarsky said, which is yeah, maybe it's redundant, but I don't really care about that. And I think that at the end of the day, I don't think it hurts to have the state say, hey, let's encourage this conversation, because it is a real conversation that needs to be had. I mean, I've been teaching for 19 years, and I would say really in the last year or two, the problem has truly accelerated. And I think some of that's around another bill that I have later that I hope you'll support. But there is a problem, and I don't have a problem throwing some redundancy in the code if it's going to help facilitate that conversation, because it needs to be had. We know our friends at the local level sometimes like to dither, no offense, locals. And if this helps encourage some of those conversations, I think that's to the good. And so that's why I voted for it in subcommittee, and that's why I'm going to vote for it again in committee. So I guess I'll just restate the motion, which was we recommended reporting on a vote of 3 yeses and 2 abstentions, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded that we report SB 28. Clerk will open the roll. There you go.
Ayes 13, noes 2.
Thank you. SB 28 has been reported on a vote of, you were too fast for 13-2. Thank you. And Senator Van Valkenburg, your next bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, the next bill is Senate Bill 60 from Senator Favola. This requires the Department of Education to make available to each school board and post on its website by the beginning of the 24-25 school year the guidelines established in accordance with relevant law for IEP teams to use in developing IEPs for children with disabilities relating to the need for age-appropriate and developmentally appropriate instruction. We recommended reporting 5-0, and I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we report SB 60, seeing no committee members on the board for comment or question. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you. SB 60 is reported from the committee. Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next bill is Senate Bill 83 from Senator McGuire. And this bill removes the 4 enumerated criteria holding a high school diploma, being a teacher of qualifications prescribed by the Board of Education, providing the child with a program of study or curriculum that may be delivered through a correspondence course or distance learning program or in any other manner, or providing evidence of the ability to provide an adequate education for the child, by which a parent is permitted to provide home instruction for his school-age child. The bill does not affect the requirement for such a parent to annually provide a description of home instruction curriculum before the school year and evidence of the child's progress. This is related to home instruction and when parents can give home instruction. The motion to recommend reporting failed on a vote of 2 to 3. And so I think the appropriate motion for me to make would be to recommend reporting, but to let everybody know that it failed.
The motion passed by indefinitely.
Okay, so I can make the motion to PBI. So then I would make a motion to pass by indefinitely.
It's been moved and seconded that SB 83 be passed by indefinitely. Are there any questions or comments from committee members? Seeing none, a clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 11, noes 4.
On a vote of 11 to 4, SB 83 has been passed by indefinitely. Thank you, Senator Van Valkenburg. Your next bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members of the committee, next is Senate Bill 84, also patroned by Senator McGuire. This is about students who receive home instruction participating in interscholastic programs. It prohibits public schools from joining an organization governing interscholastic programs that does not deem eligible for participation a student who, 1, receives home instruction, 2, has demonstrated evidence of progress for 2 consecutive years, 3, is in compliance with immunization records, 4, is entitled to free tuition in public school, and 5, who has not reached the age of 19. 6 is an amateur who receives no compensation. 7 complies with disciplinary rules. 8 complies with all of the rules governing awards, games, etc. The bill provides that no local school board is required to establish a policy to permit students who receive home instruction to participate in interscholastic programs. The subcommittee recommended passing by indefinitely on a vote of 3 to 2, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded that SB 84 be passed by indefinitely. Are there any questions or comments from committee members?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Peake.
I would just note that this is the bill where the senator from Hampton made, quoting this former senator from Fairfax, senior senator from Fairfax. I, for one, would like to see the senior senator from Fairfax and the senator from Hampton fly an F-15.
It was an F-22.
F-22, whatever they are. But in any event, that's all.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second that SB 84 be passed by indefinitely. That is the motion in front of us. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 9, noes 6.
On a vote of 9 to 6, SB 84 has been passed by indefinitely. Senator Van Valkenburg, your next bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next is my Senate Bill 127, which is the bill to get us to 1 school counselor for every 250 students. We are currently at 1 for every 325. We recommended reporting this 5 to 0, and we would need to recommend reporting and re-refer to finance, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that SB 127 be reported and re-referred to finance. Any questions, comments from committee members? Seeing none, clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you. SB 127 has been reported and re-referred to finance. Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next up is my Senate Bill 128. We're going to need to approve an amendment in the nature of a substitute, which was not before subcommittee. Just to explain, this was a drafting error on my part when we were going back and forth with drafts, and we left off one of the JLARC recommendations from their first recommendation related to clerical workers. And so we needed to put that back in, but this is just making the bill whole based on what we had talked about in subcommittee. This bill is JLARC recommendations 1 and 7. And so I guess at first I would move the amendment in the nature of a substitute.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the substitute. Is there, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The substitute has been adopted for SB 128. Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This bill would implement the JLARC recommendations 1 and 7 that came from the report on school funding. I think we all know that we need to change the funding formula and we need to have a broader conversation, but this would get the ball rolling on making sure we're doing some things better in the meantime as a transition period. And so it changes some of the standards of quality to make sure we're more robustly funding these positions. The subcommittee recommended reporting 5-0. We would now recommend reporting amendment in the nature of a substitute and re-referring to finance, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded that we report with substitute and re-refer to finance. Are there any questions or comments from committee members?
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Please go ahead, Senator Favola.
Okay, my question is on the section 22.1-98.3, are some of the factors that are mentioned here, are they new to our calculation? Or are they merely an enhancement and are in statute and have been overlooked? Perhaps you can add some clarification, and I can ask General Counsel to answer that if you wish, or
Yeah, I mean, this
Senator
is I think it's mostly enhancements of making sure that so if you, for example, if you look at lines, you were talking about 22.1, 98.3, right? Senator Favola?
Yes, and yes.
So if you look at C, right, it's talking about making sure we're not capping inflation rates so that we're properly funding at the state level versus what the locals have to pay, right? So it's making sure that the state is doing a more robust job of paying for these positions that we are currently underfunding and the locality is taking up.
So
enhancement, I think, to give you the one word.
Because in effect, we still have a bit of a cap on support personnel. We're moving towards removing it, but we're not completely there.
Correct.
This would
Get us
completely remove it.
Further down the road.
And include some other things that should be included in the calculation but have not. They should be included based on our current law.
Correct.
So that, I think, needs to be clarified, that you're not really adding additional criteria. You're stating that the criteria there really needs to be fully funded.
Correct, Madam Chair. Yeah, so when you look at the JLARC study, right, the JLARC study is talking about how can we get down the road to having a different funding formula that appropriately is the responsibility of the state, but recognizing the fact that that's a huge lift and is going to take a couple years. They also put in a series of recommendations for, in the short term, how we can take the system we have and be more robust as a state. And these are recommendations 1 and 7 from that report.
Yes, I think I remember them. Yeah. I support your bill.
Thank you.
Just wanted to be clear for the public.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. You're good. Yeah.
Senator Van Valkenburg, do you want to restate your
the motion? Sure. It is to recommend reporting an amendment in the nature of substitute and re-referring to Senate Finance, Senate Bill 128.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been recommended. The motion is to report the bill with the amendment in the nature of a substitute and re-refer to finance. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 14, no 0, 1 abstention.
Thank you. SB 128 has been reported with an amendment in the nature of a substitute and re-referred to finance. Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next up is Senate Bill 181 from Senator Rouse, and this is around cardiac emergency response plans and is building on some work that's been done in previous sessions related to this issue. It requires each public elementary or secondary school to develop a cardiac emergency response plan that addresses the appropriate use of school personnel to respond to incidents involving an individual who's experiencing sudden cardiac arrest or a similar life-threatening emergency while on school grounds and in the event that such school has an athletic department or organized athletic program while attending or participating in an athletic practice or event. The bill requires each such group to integrate nationally recognized evidence-based core elements such as those recommended by the AHA guidelines and integrate certain provisions and guidelines, including those relating to establishing a cardiac emergency response team, activating such team in response to a sudden cardiac event, and integrating the CERP into the local community's emergency medical services response protocol. It also requires that such funds that may be appropriated pursuant to the budget that the department will establish and administer a grant program for the purposes of all of this. So it's got two components. One is the locality creating their kind of cardiac plan, and the second is a grant fund. We recommended reporting 5-0, and the motion would be to recommend reporting and re-refer to finance, and I so move.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that SB 181 be reported and re-referred to finance. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, clerk will open the roll.
I'm a yes. It's not. Oh, nice try.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you. SB 181 has been reported and re-referred to finance. Senator Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, next up is Senator Rome's Senate Bill 283, and this is about school meals being available at no cost to students. It provides that each school board shall require each public elementary and secondary school in the local school division to participate in the federal National School Lunch Program and the federal School Breakfast Program administered by the Department of Agriculture, or in the community eligibility provision as provided in relevant law, if applicable, and to make lunch and breakfast available to any student who requests such a meal at no cost to the student unless the student's parents has provided written permission to the school board to withhold such a meal for the student. The bill also requires the DOE to reimburse such public elementary and secondary school for each school breakfast or lunch served to a student with a maximum of one per student per day, and provides the formula for determining the state reimbursement for such meals. The bill contains provisions directing each school board to adopt policies and procedures aimed at maximizing access to federal funds available for the cost of participating in breakfast and lunch programs, and maximizing determinations of student eligibility for federal fee or reduced cost meal reimbursement rates in participation in CEP. The bill also lowers the minimum identified student percentage for a school to be eligible to participate in CEP from 40 to 25% in accordance with the updated federal CEP regulations. The bill also requires the Secretary of Education, in coordination with the Secretary of Finance, to convene a stakeholder work group to study and make recommendations on ways to avoid or mitigate the impact of offering student-wide free school breakfast and lunch on other state-funded programs, and to submit a report by January 15th, 2025 to the Senate Committee on Education and Health and the House Committee on Education. And finally, the bill also repeals provisions of law relating to the federal school breakfast program and to school meal debt that are rendered obsolete by the provisions of the bill. We recommended reporting on a vote of 4-1, and we would need to recommend reporting and re-referring to finance, and I move at the appropriate time.
It's been moved and seconded that SB 283 be reported and re-referred to finance. Are there any questions or comments from committee members? Seeing none, clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 11, noes 4.
Thank you. The committee had opportunity to engage in comment, and we had no comment, so let's please not comment to each other quietly here under mumbled breaths.
Not so quietly.
SB 283 has been reported and re-referred to finance. Please take it up with finance if you have any other issues. Senator Van Valkenburg.
All right, and last but not least is Senate Bill 314 from Senator Rome as well. This established a farm-to-school program task force. It requires the DOE to establish and appoint such members as it deems necessary or appropriate to the farm-to-school program task force for the purpose of increasing student access throughout Virginia to high-quality farm-to-school programs defined in the bill as programs that, 1, purchase and feature predominantly in school meals locally produced food, or 2, that involve experiential student learning opportunities relating to local food and agriculture, including school and community garden programs and local farm visits. The bill requires the task force to collaborate with local school boards, community-based organizations, farmers, relevant state and local agencies, and other relevant stakeholders to A, assess existing farm-to-school programs within Virginia to identify and disseminate to each local school board best practices, B, establish and distribute to each local school board a guidance document for establishment of these programs, and C, provide information and resources to each local school board to assist in leveraging funds, and I lied, and D, collect such data and such policy recommendations to local school boards, the Board of Education, and General Assembly as it deems appropriate. We recommended reporting 5-0. It does not look like this needs to go to finance, so I would move that we report. Move a report.
It's been moved and seconded that SB 314 be reported. Are there any further comments or questions from committee? Seeing none, clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you. SB 314 has been reported from the committee. And that concludes your docket, I believe, Senator Van Valkenburg.
I am all done.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. And our next chair is Senator Locke, reporting from the Subcommittee on Higher Education.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first bill we took up was Senate Bill 46, which has a substitute that incorporates Senate Bill 71 from Senator McPike, and I would move the substitute.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that the substitute be adopted. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? The substitute has been adopted.
Thank you. What this bill does is to prohibit any public institution of higher education from providing any manner of preferential treatment in the admissions decision to any student applicant on the basis of such student's legacy status, as defined in the bill, or such student's familial relationship to any donor to such institution. Did I do something?
No, we have to incorporate 71 first.
I thought we did that.
It's a recorded vote.
Oh, okay.
My apologies. We need to have a recorded vote. The substitute is an incorporation of SB 71, Senator McPike, into the bill SB 46, which is in front of us. Is there a motion to? It's been moved and seconded that we incorporate this as a recorded vote.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you. The substitute has been incorporated.
Okay. As explained, this after the incorporation of 71 into 46, what the bill does is it deals with admissions applications and legacy admissions as explained. And after discussion, it was recommended for reporting the substitute on a vote of 5-0, and I move that we report Senate Bill 46.
It's been moved and seconded that we report with substitute SB 46. Clerk will open the roll. Oh, I'm sorry, are there any questions or comments? Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Thank you. SB 46 has been reported with substitute. And Senator Locke.
Our next bill is Senate Bill 46. Is Senator Stanley still here? Okay. Senate Bill 62. Senate Bill 62 deals with the New College Institute duties. It requires the New College Institute to design and implement in collaboration with several there's an amendment. And I move the amendment which modifies the entities with which the New College Institute is required to collaborate. It replaces the Department of Education with the Department of Labor and Industry, and I move the amendment.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment has been adopted.
Okay, so what Senate Bill 62 does, it requires the New College Institute to design and implement in collaboration with several partners any workforce development programs necessary to support the initiatives of the Office of the Governor, including adult education and workforce training programs. And the motion was to recommend reporting with the amendment, but this motion failed on a vote of 2-3. But there was some discussion with Senator Stanley in the interim that some folks may change their mind. However, the motion did fail. The motion was to recommend it
PBI?
to PBI. So
There is a motion. Is there a second? We will have time.
the motion is to pass by indefinitely.
That's her motion.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we pass by indefinitely SB 62. Are there questions and comments from committee members?
Madam Chair, in subcommittee, I was a vote to pass this by, but I've talked to folks since, and I'm going to change my vote to support the bill. So I just wanted everybody to know. We had a conversation back and forth in subcommittee, and I think it was a good conversation. But I think talking to folks afterwards, I'm going to change my vote because I think I'm good with the bill. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Thank you, Senator Van Valkenburg. I'll just remind everyone that we can use our queue to get in queue as we want to speak. And next in queue is Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first, the internal high schooler and myself really appreciate you correcting the teacher about raising their hand there. And to further help our colleague, I would like to make a substitute motion that we report the bill.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we report the bill, that we have other speakers in queue. We will correct that in just a second, but we have other speakers in queue. Senator Favola.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question is the New College Institute, what they're trying to do, is my understanding, is create a collaboration to implement the governor's workforce development initiatives. Is that it, sort of in a nutshell? How does this differ from what other colleges are also doing? Is this something unique, or are they part of a cadre of colleges and universities that are attempting to do the same thing?
Senator Favola, since your question is really directed to the patron, we will invite the patron to address and respond to your question.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would answer the gentlelady by saying what this does is it allows for, and it's not a huge expansion, but for New College Institute to collaborate when necessary. And when we talk about workforce training, we're talking about industry that may come into Southside Virginia, new 21st century technology industry. And it would allow us, especially if, as we know, the Office of the Governor, no matter who is there, are always trying to bring industries in, that we can nimbly and quickly and effectively create a workforce training program, maybe even a credential program, that would not only entice that business into the local area that's been suffering economically for so long, but also to assist in that regard. We wouldn't be going out doing this on our own. It's when necessary we would be empowered to do that in quick response time and provide a good instruction that would train a workforce in the area that would be helpful for bringing industries in.
Follow-up question, Madam Chair?
Senator Favola.
Thank you. So this could be a collaboration, say, with the Go Virginia, if they're trying to recruit businesses, the fact that the new college would have a curriculum to train the workers for this prospective new business would be part of the scenario, would be a critical part of your economic development.
Madam Chair, I'd answer the senator by saying absolutely. And it's not just limiting the collaboration even with the governor's office. We'd be working with labor. We'd be working with the system, the council, Board of Workforce Development, whomever would be deployed to train an area, the citizens of an area, for a particular skill set of an industry that's coming in that would be mission critical and also would bring jobs to our area and give jobs to the people that have suffered in Southside Virginia, and Martinsville in particular, for quite some time.
One last question, Madam Chair.
Senator Favola.
What is the unemployment rate in the area served by this college?
It's 5.8.
So it's above our state
Yeah,
average.
Madam Chair, and I'm sorry I answered directly, Madam Chair. I would answer the gentlelady by also saying what concerns me the most and has been a real initiative for us is that nearly 1 out of 3 children live at or below the poverty level there in Martinsville and Henry County. And so what we have is we have as our mission to seek those students out that may not be able to afford college, may not be college ready, but with the programs we have in place, give them a skill, a credential, a portable credential that can help them break the cycle of poverty. And as I know from my own family, when my father, who got an education that no one else had gotten in his family before, and it broke the cycle of poverty for him, it breaks the cycle of poverty for the whole family. So that is one of our mission critical points when it comes to new college in our region.
Thank you. Senator Boysko?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question. This is, in order for this to take place, we have to have legislation. Is that my understanding? The new college would not have the ability to do this work without this enabling legislation. Is that accurate?
Madam Chair, I'd answer the senator by saying if no one was looking, but New College was a statutorily created entity well before we were here to try to address workforce issues, but really college education issues. We have one of the lowest college graduate levels percentages in the state, but we've morphed because now the delivery system for college education now is online. We were doing it before it was cool, doing kind of a blended thing, but now the large institutions, which we still partner with and do for, like, we graduated 19 teachers just a little while ago that stayed in the area. Longwood College helped us do that. We partner with Radford. So there are four-year educational platforms that we do have. But what we have here is the ability to do something because we're statutorily created. If it's not there, we don't want to do it thinking we can.
Senator Stanley, thank you for speaking again to this bill. I still have my questions and reservations around most especially the amendment. The amendment is going to be taking New College Institute, taking a college, in essence, out of the Department of Education and replacing it by the Department of Labor and Industry. I also feel like my questions were not completely satisfied about the collaboration with the course offerings that are provided by the relevant community colleges in the area. All of the degrees that come from NCI are, in essence, degrees conferred by partnering institutions, not by NCI.
Correct.
And so those degree programs fall under the jurisdiction and the authority of the Department of Education, under SHAV, under the requirements of our accrediting body, SAC-COC, and so I still share those concerns. I will continue to vote in opposition to this bill, but I appreciate the comments you have provided to clarify. Seeing no further comments, or Senator Favola, please go ahead.
My apologies. I would just ask the patron, would you consider an amendment where you retain the Department of Education and you can add the Department of Labor? I think Madam Chair makes some very valid points.
Madam Chair, I'd answer the gentle lady by saying absolutely. What we're trying to do is bring as much of the governmental entities in that may be required to create these job training credential programs. So I have no objection whatsoever to putting back in the Department of Education and adding labor and industry as well.
I will make that friendly amendment. I move that amendment.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the amendment offered by Senator Favola be adopted. I seeing no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? the amendment offered by Senator Favola has been adopted. Any other discussion on this bill?
Madam Chair, I appreciate your gentle no. I do. It's gentle.
I would just renew the motion that, the substitute motion that we report the bill as it's now currently been amended and re-refer to finance. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So it's been recommended that we report the bill with the First Amendment inclusive of the Second Amendment offered by Senator Favola and re-referred to finance. I hope I got the motion correct. It's been moved and seconded. Clerk will open the roll.
Barbara, touch my yay. It will not, sweetheart. My fingers are so cold.
Ayes 14, noes 1.
Thank you. The motion to report as amended, SB 62, and refer to finance has passed. And thank you, Senator Stanley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you. Senator Locke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 71 was incorporated into Senate Bill 46. So our next bill is Senate Bill 159 from Senator Boysko, which requires the membership of the State Council of Higher Education for Virginia to include at least one non-legislative citizen member who has served as a CEO, officer of an accredited nonprofit private institution of higher education whose primary purpose is to provide collegiate, graduate, or professional education and not to provide religious training or theological education. And the bill has a delayed effective date of July 1st, 2026 to serve on the board of SHEV. And the committee recommended on a vote of 5-0 to recommend reporting, and I move that the bill be reported.
It's been moved and seconded that the SB 159 be reported from committee, and Senator Peake wishes to speak, followed by Senator Suderline.
Yes, just a question to Senator Boysko, if possible. What is the problem with religious training or theological education? Why are they excluded in there?
Madam Chair, currently we have a member of a private college, a former president of a private college on this board. This is just to say that we believe that that is important, that the private colleges in Virginia are recognized and a part of the system. This bill was brought to me by the private colleges of Virginia, and we feel that this is in the language, the appropriate language.
Madam Chair, further.
Senator Peake, please go ahead.
Would the intent of this to make sure that no one from Liberty University would be able to serve on SHEV?
Madam Chair, excuse me, I keep trying to, Madam President. This is intended for the undergraduate schools that are, liberal arts and providing a full education. Typically, a school of theology is a master's level or divinity or PhD. This is intended for the bachelor's and associate level included.
Senator Suderline.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my understanding is that under this bill, Liberty University, with a total enrollment, I believe, approaching 94,000 online and in person, Regent at 10,000, would both be excluded. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, that's not correct. Chris Pease is here, who might be able to answer any questions if you all have any concerns.
Sorry, we're not going to take any further
Okay.
public testimony.
Madam,
The bill was heard.
Madam Chair, I would just tell my colleagues that undergraduate colleges who happen to be private schools, including Liberty University, would be included in this group, but also schools like Hollins, schools like Randolph-Macon, schools like Hampton-Sydney, who are excellent four-year colleges, should have a role in this. They educate huge numbers of our students, and we believe that they should have a permanent seat. Correct.
Thank.
Madam Chair, I just want to thank council for all that helpful explanation.
I would ask council to state it publicly so that everyone can hear. Thank you, council.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So this language appears in other sections of the code that have a similar effect. And if you look at, let's see, if you look at line 60 through 61, it says whose primary purpose is to provide collegiate, graduate, or professional education and not to provide religious training or theological education. So this is excluding only those institutions of higher education whose primary purpose is to provide religious training or theological education. So in effect, it would only be excluding seminaries, and it has to do with Establishment Clause, First Amendment issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other. Before we do that, if I may, I still have some reservations about the bill, and I just want to share them, but I will be continuing my conversation with the patron and some of the stakeholders. My primary reservation is that our State Council of Higher Education has authority over our public institutions. It has the authority to and it has the ability to require reporting and data collection and an opportunity to make decisions that impact our public institutions. And so some of the questions that were raised here, to what degree do our private institutions want to engage in that level of reporting and responsiveness to SHEV is going to be a part of our ongoing consideration. But I will be supporting this legislation to add a board member, but would like to continue the conversation with the patron and other stakeholders as we move forward. So if we can renew the motion from Madam Chair of our higher education.
The motion is to report Senate Bill 159.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that 159 be reported. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
SB 159 has been reported from committee, and Senator Locke.
Our next bill is Senate Bill 318 from Senator Rome. It establishes the Hunger-Free Campus Grant Program to address student food insecurity at public institutions of higher education. Participation in the program is optional for such institutions, and the program will be managed by SHEV. It was recommended for reporting on a vote of 5-0, and I move reporting Senate Bill 318.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that SB 318 be reported and.
Oh, I'm sorry. I move
re-refer.
Reporting Senate Bill 318 and re-refer to Senate Finance.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we report SB 318 and re-refer to Finance. Are there any comments or questions from committee? Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Thank you. SB 318 has been reported and re-referred to Finance. And the final bill on your docket, Senator Locke.
Our final bill is from Senator Pillion, Senate Bill 613. It authorizes the governing board of certain educational institutions to establish and maintain a campus security department and to and to employ security personnel. Currently, under current law, these institutions are only authorized to contract for security services. This was recommended for reporting on a vote of 5-0, and I move reporting Senate Bill 613.
It's been moved and seconded that SB 613 be reported. Are there any questions or comments from committee? Clerk will open the roll.
One more conversation. Yes, we'll get it on the floor.
Ayes 15, no zero.
SB 613 has been reported. Does that conclude your docket?
It does.
Our docket for the Senate Committee on Education and Health is concluded, and our committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Great job.
The Senate of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia.